Okay, let's talk about China and AI, artificial intelligence. Now, in January of this year, a Chinese company called DeepSeek released a AI model, and this somewhat shocked the world, especially the US, and it caused billions of dollars to be wiped off the values of US companies, because it turns out that China had developed this model on a far smaller budget, millions of dollars, unlike America's OpenAI and Anthropic, who are spending billions of dollars. And at that time, that model performed better than some of those American ones. So this was a major wake-up call for the US. But the thing is, it shouldn't have been a major wake-up call for the US. Now, about 6 or 8 months prior to this DeepSeek model being released in China, Eric Schmidt, who's the ex-CEO of Google, so he should know a lot about these things. And I believe he's acting as some sort of advisor to a government, or he works on a sort of think tank. But about 6 to 8 months prior to DeepSeek coming out, he was suggesting that China were at least 12 to 18 months behind the US in AI. Well, obviously that was not the case, and it just baffles me how so many so-called US experts managed to get this wrong, because I live here in China and I can tell you for at least 3 or 4 years AI has been in use in China. You look at ports, you look at factories, you look at telecommunications, you look at high-speed rail, you look at the power grid here, you look at underground and public transportation here. It all uses AI. And this is not something new. So it was thought that the start of AI was about 2 years ago, when OpenAI released their ChatGPT model. But for a number of years, China had been using AI in many industries and industry sectors. You know, they have factories that run almost completely on AI. I've actually been to some of these factories. But this is the big difference, you see. So China develop things like AI, and they don't shout about it. They just get on with it, but they put it to solving real world problems. So a priority for China was not to help some journalist rewrite a paragraph of text or make a nice image. China looked at AI. All right, how can we improve industry? How can we improve telecommunications? How can we improve transportation? How can we improve, infrastructure projects? You know, there's infrastructure projects here that 3 or 4 years ago were using AI to run that project, which meant it became much, much more efficient. It was only recently, you now have Chinese companies, a lot of Chinese companies who are involved in AI. You have ByteDance, who are the company behind TikTok. You have Alibaba, you have Tencent, you have Baidu, you have DJI, you have DeepSeek, you have Kimi. There are a huge amount of Chinese AI companies, but a lot of them are not giving a priority to the end consumer AI. This is all AI that they're pushing in industrial, in telecommunications, as I've said, even in healthcare. You know, we had AI running here during COVID time for diagnosis in hospitals. So this is where they develop it for real world situations that are very, very useful. Whereas I see in the US, it's all about consumer AI. So this, I think, is why it was such a big shock to the US. But as I say, it shouldn't have been, because those so-called experts, if they'd have spent any time whatsoever in China, they would have known that this was going on. So like recently, we have Xiaomi have just opened a new AI-run dark factory. It produces 1 cell phone per second. And there's almost no one in the factory. I have been myself to numerous factories. I was recently at a brand called Haitian. They manufacture soy sauce. I've never seen so much automation in a factory in all my life. They have a capacity to manufacture 40 million bottles a day. It's just mind-blowing. But as I say, this is something that China excel at, is putting AI into industry, transportation, infrastructure products, telecommunications, all this kind of thing. They focus less on consumer AI. Now they have mastered all that industrial AI and transportation AI and infrastructure AI. They are now starting to concentrate a little more on consumer AI. So we see some of the best video models, some of the best reasoning models are coming from Chinese companies. And it's very, very interesting that, you know, the US are still trying to sanction China to stop their development of AI. Well, I actually would argue that in many respects, China are further forward than the US in a lot of AI. We have Alibaba. They have just come out with news a few days ago that using a Chinese chip, they can achieve equivalent efficiency results as NVIDIA chips. They've improved 20%. If you look at what DeepSeek did, they went to the low-level programming language, to the chip language, to improve the efficiency. And, you know, this is only the start. DeepSeek will be releasing more models in the future. Obviously, you get the China release a model, then the US releases a model, and they compete with each other. One month one's better, the next month another's better. But this shouldn't be a race. AI should benefit all mankind. And I think that's what China is trying to do. A lot of Chinese AI companies' models are much, much cheaper to use, and in some cases they're actually open source. This is a totally different model to the US, where recently OpenAI suggested they may charge up to $20,000 per month for their best models. Well, this is not the way China are going. China are going open source or very, very cheap. And the adoption of AI in China is absolutely huge. Since the DeepSeek moment, you've had companies, and I've no idea why, companies that produce robotic vacuum cleaners are integrating DeepSeek AI into their models. And my prediction is that the next thing that the West will be shocked about is China's AI humanoid robots. They are making massive strides forward in that, and it's quite exciting to watch. But you can bet your bottom dollar that when they release something onto the market, the consumer market, America will be so shocked. But I can tell you, those humanoid robots are already at work in factories here in China. They also have a huge training base in Shanghai where companies are using to train those robots. So it just really shows me that these so-called experts in America are not really that expert, because, as I say, AI has been here a long time in China and it continues to be. And actually, as a matter of interest, the same was with 5G. For many years, 5G was rolled out into the telecommunications for industry, mines, ports, airports, all this kind of thing, solving real world problems. So the mixture of 5G with AI is a really powerful thing. And many European countries in America don't really yet have true 5G. But in a lot of those countries, it's all about the consumer side, whereas in China, the consumer side generally is the last area to be addressed. It's all about industry and manufacturing, and in my mind, that is the best way to actually do it. Anyway, that's the end of my thoughts on this. You let me know what you think in the comments down below. However, as always, for now, take care.